morning. Glad everybody's able to make it out this morning. It's great to be back in the house, be here this week. I was reading over the lesson this week with Sam, and we were talking about it this morning, and the lesson title is Confidence in the Face of Fear. Trust God when you're overwhelmed with fear. And lately, we have a lot, last couple of years or year and a half or so, there's been a lot of fear in the world and stuff, and people's facing a lot of different things. So he's like, Sam's like, it's a good lesson this week, and it is going to be a really good lesson reading through it. If you haven't had a chance, I encourage you even after today to read through it and everything. We have nothing to fear because we've got God on our side, and that's just something that I want you to remember, that we can face anything with God. And, God's greater than anything we can face. So we've had a lot of great teachers the last few weeks, last month, and we've got a good one today. So if anybody has got anything before we start, let me know now. Spence, can you say a prayer for us before we start?
Thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us, and we just thank you for our help, Lord, that we're able to come out to your house. Lord, I pray that you bless each one here. Lord, just bless the teacher, bless the one that stands at the 11 o'clock hour. And, be with the sick and the afflicted. Most of all, Lord, be with those that lost in sin in Jesus' name.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we're in our second lesson of this study, and we're in Genesis 12. Last week we talked about Abraham's call, or Abram's call, and today is the confidence in the face of fear. And the point is, trust God when you are overwhelmed with fear. And in the little book, they kind of start off with, what are you afraid of? I don't know. It is amazing how fears face us differently. Like what I may be afraid of, you may not be afraid of, or what you're afraid of, I may not be afraid of. I don't think it's a good idea to let people know what your fears are, because they'll use it against you. If people know you're afraid of mice, most likely at work, there'll be a mouse tied to your chair when you pull out your chair. Or if heights or anything like that, it's kind of dangerous. Now, fear, though, is great, because if I can make you all afraid, I can control you. And that's what's so awesome about fear. Any great communist leader, socialist leader, man, if they can, that's how they do everything. And just like COVID, man, just scared to death, everyone. and they can control us if we're fearful. And it's very, it is very powerful. And it's surprising to me of seeing people that are fearful that, wow, I would never thought she would have been afraid or he would have been afraid, whether it's heights or frogs are another one that kind of puzzle me. I mean, there are people that see a frog and it's like someone just pulled out a poisonous snake. And that's something that happens. And I love Genesis. I just love Genesis because, boy, what a bunch of misfits. All these great, godly women and men, boy, did they blow it. And that gives me confidence. It really does. And I think about Abraham. Last week we learned about Abraham, that all of his seeds are going to be blessed. And he is going to be the father of all nations. And his seeds, everything, all families will be blessed. So here's Abram. He's made it to that where God told him to get up and leave. He has no seed. He has no children. And he's scared to death of losing his life. So wait a minute. Did not God just tell him that, hey, your seed's going to, bless every family. And now he has no family, and he's scared to death. He's scared to lose his life. Okay, that's terrible faith. But does anybody want to pick up a stone and throw it at Abraham? Anyone want a promise that we know, that we've kind of forgot about? A promise that we know for certain, but we still did it. We still acted that way. So God blessed Abram, and he had a lot of cattle, and he was given this land, and he's in this land, and God throws a test to him. He brings a great famine. All right, how many tests have been in our lives? So what did God do? Or what did Abram do? He stayed where God told him to go, right? And he trusted God. No. Verse 10, Genesis chapter 12, and there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. So right away, he's panicking. Okay, he's got cattle to feed. That's everything. Okay, if you can't feed your family, if you can't, okay, you better do something. So does anybody want to fault Abram for wanting to go to Egypt? Now here's the problem with Egypt. Anytime when you study the Bible, Egypt is always representation of the world, not godly. I don't know. I always kind of, in my mind, I can think of stuff, but then when I say it, it doesn't make quite sense. But it's not a godly place. It's not godly people. It's more of the world, more secular than godly. So God chose this people, this man, told him to go here. A family shows up, and he hightails it to Egypt, which is secular. Verse 11, and it came to pass, when he was come near to enter into Egypt, that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass, when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. Say, I pray thee, that thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. So, as they're going to Egypt, Abram realizes he has a problem. I think it's a huge underestimate of how pretty Sarah is. Sarai, from all all the readings, I mean, this woman was gorgeous. I mean, just gorgeous. About 10 years younger, I think the best we can tell, than Abram. It's around 65. And he's worried that what the Egyptians are going to do. Okay, well, why was he worried? Because guess what? That's what the Egyptians did. He wasn't worried for no reason. He wasn't making up the boogeyman in his head. He was really worried, and he had good reason to be worried, because he knew what these people do. And if that's his wife, and he's her husband, they'll kill him and take her. All right, so I think back to last week, Randy's sermon. Okay, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, where's Abram's faith, the father of faith? How come he didn't bow, didn't bend, didn't burn? No, because he allowed his flesh to get in the way. He allowed his flesh his fear overcame him. And that's the problem with especially a family. Guess what? When one person's really afraid, it affects more than just you, unfortunately. When I think of a good leader, I think of a leader that's not afraid. Can you imagine a football coach that's talking to his football team, and all of his teammates know he's scared to death to play this next team? Okay, I'm not going to do so well. And then I think back to our leader, our president, and it's really fascinating. If you go back to when he was vice president, with, I think it was SARS, one of the other diseases, right? We've had diseases and sickness forever. But he literally is quoted saying, I wouldn't go anywhere in a confined place right now. So that's the leader, our vice president, saying that no, any confined place, there's no way I'd go there. Okay, well, what does that tell the country that he's leading? Okay, if he's scared to death to go in an airplane, if he's scared to death to go, okay, this must be terrible. And now he's leading the free world, and he's a scaredy cat and scared to death of everything. So Abram affected everyone. And think about the consequences. Did Abraham know the consequences of this lie? He's trying to save his life. Okay. He knew, he had to have known the consequences. What's going to happen? What could happen? Most likely, his wife is going to be taken by the Pharaoh into the palace, into the concubine. Okay, is that where his faith came in? Okay, yeah. I'm going to try to stay alive, but surely he's not. No, nothing will happen to my wife with this terrible decision. Or, I don't know. I mean, this was fascinating. Okay, he should have stayed there. Okay, now he didn't stay there. Okay, he should have not lied. He should have said that, this is my life. And the funny thing is, if you look in the little book, they make mention of it. Sarah and Abram are sister and brother. Same father, different mother. So technically, he didn't lie. Well, but he did lie. I mean, that's not his wife. I mean, he said it wasn't his wife, and it was his wife. So, but for Everyone went along with the story. So Sarai, okay, no problem. I'll say that I am your sister. And then verse 14, it doesn't do 14 and 15 to 16, so I'm just going to read 14, 15 to 16. And it came to pass that when Abraham was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, and she was very fair. And the princess also of the Pharaoh saw her and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house. So again, Abraham had to have known this was going to happen. And I'm assuming Sarah had to know that this was going to happen. Verse 16, and he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he-asses and men servants and maid servants and she-asses and camels. So, because of Sarah, taking Sarah, Abram was rewarded with all kinds of more wealth, more servants, more. His wealth grew. So, is it moral to lie? What if it's to protect my wife? To bad people. Okay, we're heading to wherever, where we know, like Abram knew, right? We can all think of a place that we've been or a place we've heard that, okay, I don't want to go there. Something really bad can happen. And that's where Becky and I are heading. Okay, is it terrible for me to lie if I can save her life? Or Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, trust God? No, let's go, we're going. Oh, I'm not going to say a thing. If she dies, it's God's will. Whoops. If I die, it's God's will. I'm telling you, this is heavy stuff when you really start thinking about it. And I certainly don't have any answers. I told you in the beginning, I'm just thrilled to see that, just like all the times I've screwed up, all the times I've affected my family, all the times I've screwed up my family, that God somehow still allows me to live. And I'm just a blessed man in spite of all my horrible misgivings and bad decisions. And it's tough. Then I talk about, they also gave the example, Saul, when Samuel was going to go anoint David, he didn't want to tell Saul because he'd kill Samuel. So God even told him. The best I can remember, God told him to lie. And say, no, this is a burnt offering, whatever. He didn't go tell him, no, I'm going to go anoint David king. So, I don't know, it really is a gray area. And I'd love for y'all to share some wisdom on me. Because I don't know. But that's tough. And that's what fear does, right? If we've ever been scared, we do stuff that's maybe not rational. We may make poor decisions. I've always been impressed of like our first responders. When you study like what happened in the World Trade Center, those firemen knew they weren't coming out. And they went right up. And they went up those stairs. Okay, maybe there were some fearful ones that didn't. Well, I got to go check but most of those, they knew they weren't coming out alive. And they didn't let fear stop them. And they went right into that building and never came out. And that's where fear it's definitely paralyzing. It definitely affects others. I think about when Shane and I went up in the bucket to clean this steeple. I mean, my hands hurt because I was holding on to the railing so tight. I was useless. Good thing Shane was up there because he was the one watching it. I don't know what I did besides just sat there in fear. I mean, every time it moved, and I'm just like, whoa. And I remember like, man, my hands hurt because I just had such a death grip. And again, I don't know, it's weird. It's one of those things, heights. I'm okay with heights sometimes, but then other times I'm not okay. I love the feeling of falling. Any ride that I can, Tower of Terror in Disney, man, I love that. But I feel pretty safe, but I love that feeling of falling. But not up there, I didn't want that feeling of falling. I mean, I don't know, it's amazing how fear definitely affects us and paralyzes. I mean, I have had that. I mean, I was paralyzed, really. I mean, I was just paralyzed, until you can gain that confidence. So here's the great father of faith who was told to go to this great promised land, and then God sent a famine, and he hightailed it to Egypt. And now he said, hey, this is my sister. Now she's been taken. And now we go to verse 17. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because Sarai, Abraham's wife. And again, this is where I love the Bible, but man, I wish there was more information sometimes. What does that mean? What plagues? And how did Pharaoh know it was because of Sarah? And wait a minute. What did Pharaoh do to deserve these plagues? Shouldn't Abraham be getting the plagues? He's the one that lied. He's the one that is taking him to the desert. Why are you plaguing Pharaoh? And what plagues? I don't know. I'd love to know. I'd love to know more information. And I know people always, people with sense always try to talk to me. Todd, that's not important. It's not important. Don't worry about that. Don't get sidetracked. Well, I always get sidetracked. I really would love to know. Okay, what plagues? And these were great plagues. Okay, this is a godless man, Pharaoh. He doesn't believe in God. Okay, then who's plaguing him? Does he believe in God now? Or is it just like most of us? I don't know. And it's good to fear, and that's what I love about this. Great men of God should fear. They should have doubts. And it's a fascinating study. Okay, so Jews have doubts. They have doubts about their religion. Christians have doubts. They have doubts about their religion. Muslims really have doubts about their religion. And if you study Islam, you can understand why they have doubts. Okay, guess who doesn't have doubts? Atheists. That's what they tell you. They don't have doubts. Oh, they know God's not real. And it just shows you the power of Satan. But, I've looked at surveys. I remember someone talking in front of an atheist convention. And, has anyone ever doubted that God's not real? Not one hand goes up. Are you kidding me? And here we have Pharaoh, who is now getting great plagues from a God that he doesn't believe. And somehow he figures out it's because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Verse 18, and Pharaoh called Abram and said, what is that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, she is my sister, so I might have taken her to me to wife? Now therefore, behold, thy wife, take her and go thy way. And this is another lesson I've learned over the years. I shouldn't say learned. This is the other lesson that God has exposed to me, or I've been exposed, the fraud I am, or when a godless person calls me out for my faith. And boy, does it hurt. I mean, I think of, Peter warming his hands at the fire. Hey, aren't you? No, I never do them. And I've had situations where I've screwed up in my life, and a person sat there and told me, well, I don't believe in God, I'm a godless and all that. Hey, wait a minute, aren't you a man? Why would you do that if you're a man of God? So here's Pharaoh calling out Abram. Man, that's got to hurt. So God appeared to Abram, everything, man of faith, all that. And he's basically saying, take her and get out of here. So he made a choice to go to Egypt to hopefully provide for his family. Okay, he didn't make the choice to leave Egypt. And I think, I don't know, the best way I can see is, and this is where I struggle with this lesson, I think Abraham and Sarah were right. I think they would have killed Abraham, and he would have taken Sarah as his wife. Okay, but God's not going to allow that, right? God to protect him. Well, he can't allow that because he's the promised seed. But that to me kind of shows, the anger in Pharaoh. I don't know what great plagues, but this God that Pharaoh doesn't believe in now realizes this is the problem of all she's the problem of all my plagues, and what you said and what you did. Get out of here. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him that they sent him away and his wife and all that he had. And again, this is where I can relate so much to my bad decisions, my leading my family, leading into the enemy and all that. And somehow God blesses me coming out of that, out of my bad decisions. So Abram is going to leave here with more. So God blessed him even more. So now they jump to the next chapter. Chapter 13, verse 1. And Abram went up out of Egypt, and he and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. And Abram was very rich in cattle, in silver, and in gold. And he went on to his journeys from the south, even unto Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Hai. So should he have not gone at all? He's right back where he started from. Did anything good come out of it? Yeah, a lot of good comes out of my bad decisions. Oh man. As painful as these lessons are, just like I hear coaches, sometimes they can teach their players, their team, a whole lot more losing than they can winning. Abraham, tail tucked between his legs, kicked out. And he's right back where he started. Verse 4, unto the place of the altar which he had make there at the first, and there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And that to me tells you a lot about this man. And that's where I need to do better. How many people like to beat themselves up over their mistakes? Beat themselves up over what they've done to their family. Beat themselves up. The consequences they've done to their children or their wife or... And Abram, man, he just went to the altar and just started calling on the Lord. What does that mean? Abraham called on the name of the Lord. But he just started worshiping. Okay, what are you going to do with your failures? How do you get out of your failures? Give me some ideas. What's happened? How have you overcome? All right, maybe y'all never failed like me. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. So what do? You blew it. God knows it. Maybe the godless called you out. Now what do? Fear. All this started from fear. And who can blame them? I don't know. I've had children to feed, and luckily they've never gone hungry. There's been many times where I've looked at that checking account and worried that, man, okay, because my money runs out way before the month runs out way before my money does. So, but, I've always known that, grandma, grandpa, we're going to be all right. But I can't imagine. I don't know. I always say this. I wish I was a farmer. I wish I did take care of animals. Because I think I can understand the Bible a whole lot more. Just gaining that wisdom of farming and raising animals. I don't know. What do you do when there's a famine and you got so much cattle and there's nothing for them to eat? I don't want to know. I'd call Rooster, send him more hay. But then what if he's got no hay to send? So I totally understand fear. And here's someone, and I don't know where, it talks about the point, trust God when you're overwhelmed with fear. Okay, it all worked out for Abram. It all worked out for Sarai. But I don't know, did it? Sure shows a lack of faith, doesn't it? Sure shows a lack of trust. And again, they get in trouble again. Right? Later on, they try to fix it themselves with Hagar, because they still don't have a seed. And Isis was born. And you think about, I don't know, they mentioned in here, I have no idea. I'm still not too sure. They talk about Abraham's witness, how it was destroyed, and maybe he really could have helped those people. I don't know, there's a lot of people that I'm short-minded and narrow-minded, and sometimes I just think there's some people that just can't be helped. And I know that's terrible, because I know God's love and the power of God can conquer all and change anybody. And then I heard one pastor talk about this, and I thought it was brilliant. He was very quick to give God all the glory when things went well. All right, someone comes down, they're lost, and they accept Jesus as Lord and Savior. He had nothing to do with that. It was all God. I don't take any credit. The God can't, you don't take any credit for that. Okay, what about when things go all bad? You'll take all the blame for that. Well, I came up with this great idea. I told Randy, we went, and boy, did that just fail miserably. Okay, why can't that be God's plan too? Why couldn't that be God in control? God's only in control when good things happen, or is God in control when it doesn't go right? What if Pharaoh, if Pharaoh didn't do anything, and all of a sudden he's got all these great plagues on him? I don't know, there's so many, and I've got no answers. That's the problem. I love to study the Bible, and I like to hear, okay, why do you think that? Okay, tell me this, tell me that, So I like the problems, but I do struggle that I have no answers. I really don't. And I don't know. I know it's easy for me to say that we should trust God. We should not be fearful. And we should stand strong and trust God that everything's going to be great. Okay? Yeah. Until the bullets start flying in your life, all of a sudden, as what got my mom and dad and my mother-in-law, cancer. So when those bullets start flying, just stand strong, right? Faith. Well, it's easy to say until life is messy. But Abram knew to go back to worshiping God. He knew he went back to that altar. And I think about how many people, I love to hear the people that come back to Bethany. And they always have the peace. And they come back to when they were saved here. Or when this happened, or this happened. And it's a good time in our life to kind of go back. I always think about me. I was saved in a preacher's living room on a Monday morning going to work. Okay, it was kind of hard. I don't know if I can find that house. He's moved 20, 30 years ago. That was my altar that I'd have to go find or go back to. But it's always just great to have that place. And God's always building altars. And remember, because we're very forgetful people. And sure, I wish I could tell you that, hey, next time you're overwhelmed with fear, just trust God. Everything's going to be great. Do like Abram. No, don't do like Abram. Wait a minute, but it all worked out for Abram. Well, just like it's all worked out for me in my life. And I would love to know more. I don't know. There's a lot of obstacles when we return from failure. And I'm really good at that. And that's one thing I've really been able to teach my kids, what not to do. So that's always a big plus. But I don't know, just think about that. There are going to be some failures in your lives, in your kids' lives, all the way through. But really try to focus on, okay, how do I get out of this hole? Coach Jim Davis, he's a great coach at Clemson, and I always loved to hear him talk. And he talked about, if you ever find yourself in a hole, digging yourself a hole, first thing you need to do is stop digging. And too many times I'll find myself in a hole, and for some reason I'm still digging. Maybe come up with a little bit another lie. Well, maybe, okay, throw the shovel down, stop digging, and then you have a chance to maybe get out of the hole. But think about the obstacles to get back out of, because you're going to have, fear is going to mess us up. But just try to think about and focus on, okay, how do I overcome those obstacles and get back to worshiping, when things get real bad, okay, does anybody want to be in church? Does anybody want to hear God lead? Does anybody, that's the problem, right? And there's people that aren't here because they're in that situation. Maybe God can use one of us to encourage, to help somebody come back where they can go to the worship, unto the place of the altar. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. Praise God. As many times as I've messed up, I can still call on the name of the Lord. And God just blesses me. All right, anybody have anything? I know I just sit here and ramble. Nothing?